All right, everybody. This is Tom again in Western North Carolina. I'm going to try to enunciate better today. And I've got a cameraman, and so this is going to be maybe a better video. I'm pretty hopeful on that. Anyways, it's like the February 11th. And today's video, I think, is episode 9 on how to make a chair. And it's going to be how I make rungs. Anyways, you all know about splitting out the rungs, and you end up with rungs that look like this. 8-sided, close to the right dimension. And right here I've got written on a chair stick the number of rungs you need and their lengths. And you can pause to read those if you need to. Anyways, you need those rungs, and so when you get ready to make your rungs, finish your rungs, you need to look at all your rungs you have, pick out the best ones, and, start cutting them to length. Now, here's some examples. I'm down to all the ones that are left that aren't being used. You can see that one's pretty curved. But then there's other ones that are curved that can actually be used. There's got a big bend in that one. But the ends, the critical thing is that the ends be lined up with each other. So this tenon and this tenon are in line with each other. The worst shape that you can have is what I call a banana. The ends don't line up with each other. Anyways, the first thing you do is you pick your rungs, mark the lengths and cut them all to length. And then once you get them cut to length, you're the next step is to put a chamfer on the ends. And there's one with already a chamfer on it. You can do that with a knife, but I actually do it with a chamfer cutting tool that looks like this. In the lingo, this is called a spoke pointer. But I don't use it to point things, but I use it to put chamfers on. And I've got a depth stop in this, so it stops where I want it to. See, I can't go any further. So right there, that's how you put a chamfer on. That's how I put a chamfer on. That's what it ends up looking like. You move your hand away. Okay, so now we got our rungs fixed up, and once you get them cut to length, I put them in a kiln, and this is my kiln right here. And as all it is a box. I've got a light bulb in there. I'm pretty sure that's a 60-watt light bulb, and it holds the temperature there is around 90 degrees according to that. And you notice I've got the light bulb shielded from the rungs. It can actually scorch the rungs if there's direct heat from the bulb to the rungs. But see, there's a bunch of rungs in there. A lot of them are already completely finished. Like this one's ready to go in a chair. But anyways, the next step is to pull a rung out of there. And you have to put them in the kiln and have them in there at least a full day and maybe a couple, 3 days to make sure they're bone dry when you put the tenon on. And so anyways, this is one. It's got a chamfer on both ends. It's ready to have the tenon put on it. And I do this tenoning with a drill press. And this bit right here that I'm pointing at, I've got safety stuff on it. But inside it looks like this. This is a tenon cutter that you can buy. But it's what I use. And I've got a safety on this one because when people are using this, I don't want their hand to get next to it. But anyways, this is a drill press. I've got this lined up in a line. And when I go to put a tenon on, I put that up in there and I make sure, see I'm twisting it, I make sure that that's on there correctly. And I've got a foot pedal rigged up here so that I don't need 3 hands. But I'm going to hold this, I'm going to start it up, and I'm going to put a tenon on there. And that's what it looks like. And that I have a depth stop in here, and that depth stop is set at 7/8 of an inch. That tenon's 7/8 of an inch long. The holes we're going to drill in the chair, they're 1 inch. And so I don't want any of this rotary cutting action sticking out of the hole. So I'm going to just go ahead and do this other end while I'm at it. Let's see, I got it mounted in there. Start it up. There's it, another end. See, I've got both ends with a tenon on both ends now. Okay, now we're at the shaving horse. Got my spoke shave, and we need to finish this out to make it good enough to put in a chair. And so anyways, what I do is I take my spoke shave and I start shaving it. And I'm making this from 8-sided to round. And I'm just, you know, working it. And I'm being very careful here at the end where I've got this hairy bit about the chamfer. I'm trying to not get down all the way into my tenon. I'm trying to just get really, really close. But out here on the main body, I'm trying to get this to finish condition. And you can do this with a draw knife, but you gotta be careful. Depends, how slick or how rustic you want your chair to look. But see how I'm getting this down real close. That's just, I don't know what you'd call that thickness, but it's small, what I've got that down to. But anyways, you go all the way around that. You do the other end the same way, and then you end up with it looking like this. See that little burr on there? But this here is all finished. So then when I get to that point, I use my draw knife. And the reason I use my draw knife is because I can see exactly where the blade is. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a transition from this out here to this here. It's kind of a little bitty ramp. And you remember I cut the tenon 7/8, and the hole's going to be 1 inch. So this little ramp is actually going to snuggle up, inside the hole. And all this transition here is going to disappear into the mortise hole. But I'm being very careful to not, tear up the tenon. But see that? It's just transition right there. There's sort of a little wedge shape action. That's going to just get in that in the mortise and just be really, really tight. And you won't be able to see any of this tenon once it's in the chair. So anyways, you got to go all the way around, and you got to do both ends. But eventually you get that done, and you're going to end up with a rung that looks kind of like this. That's ready to go in the chair. Now, one of the classic old-time things, when you get it to this point, is to pick up a handful of these dry shavings and burnish that. I hardly ever even think about doing this anymore, but it's one of the ways that I was taught early on from real traditional type operation. You can sand this if you want, but that's pretty slick smooth if you got a good spoke shave. All right, now I just showed you how I do the rungs. All of this, remember, is how I do it. There's lots of other ways to do this stuff, but this is how I do it. Anyways, now I'm going to show you how to deal with the airfoil. Anyways, when you rough out your airfoils, they're approximately 3/4 by 1.5 inches. You need to cut them to length now. And then I have this little handy thing that I draw the ends with. And it happens to be 11/16 here. And then this length here is 1 3/8. And that angle, ooh, I don't know what that angle is, but you can sort of figure it out. But anyways, I lay that on here and draw that. And draw that. So you end up with drawings on there. Now you can cut that if you've got like a 3/8 inch or 1/4 inch bandsaw blade. You can cut that with a bandsaw, but I'm going to show you how I do it with a draw knife. And I'm backing over here to my shaving horse. Just this a little bit. Anyways, I've got that end already done, but I'm going to do this end for you. And anyways, I'm just going to shave that down to those lines. And what you have to be careful is you don't want to cut it below this line way back here when you're cutting out here. It's hard to turn that corner right down in there. And this happens to be a bevel side up draw knife, so it's very hard to turn that corner there. So I'm going to show you how I go about it. But I'm getting this slope down as far as I can without making a mistake. And I've got this out here down to the line, and I'm coming down the line there. But now what I'm going to do, I'm turning my knife over. And see that? I'm getting right down to that line. If you've got a bevel side down draw knife, it'll just go down in there without any trouble. So anyways, that's pretty much down to the line on both sides. And you end up with that, but it's still all square. So what are you going to do with that? What I do is I draw lines on there. Like so. Oh, didn't draw that one. And then I got to draw this one. Got to draw this one all the way across here like that. And like that. And then up in here, so now you just connect, you are just going to make this basically in the areas where it looks like a regular rung, you're just going to make it 8-sided. Woo. I don't want that. Where do I want it? Like that. Yo! And then this line here, you got to connect this line to that line. And this wood is right out of that kiln. It's dry wood, white oak. But you can, it'll cut. Do a little bit more right there. You see that now? I've got it 8-sided on the end. I've got my airfoil shape here. That's a little flat right there, but and that's round. And so that end right there is ready to put the tenon on. Or it's ready to have the chamfer put on it and then the tenon. And those are done just like I did the regular rung. And then you can then put the tenon on and it'll look like this. See, it's all rough still. And you can, at this point, you can, if you want to, sometimes I try to do it, I just tried to do this whole airfoil with a draw knife, no spoke shave. The airfoil doesn't have to look quite as slick as the rungs, but it has to be smooth. You want this round part of the airfoil to be very smooth because it's where your seating material is going to go around there, and you don't want little sharp corners to mess with your seating material. But see, if I'm just using my draw knife, I can just right now, you know, do the little end part where you very carefully get it right down to how you want it without going on to the tenon. Now this, the most difficult part of this is this in here. So you got to be very careful that you don't be working this part here and let your draw knife slip and tear a big part off of here. That's what happens occasionally. But you gotta learn how to control your draw knife. But see, I'm getting that right down to where it needs to be. Gotta be careful. And like I tell people, every time you take a swipe with your draw knife, it's an experiment. You don't know what exactly is going to happen because this is just wood. But you gotta, but anyways, you work that all the way around, you smooth this all up. And you can use the spoke shave if you want, just like we did with the rung. If you do it with a draw knife and you end up with a rough spot, you can always go back with your spoke shave and try to get it better. But anyways, that's some of that. And then eventually you end up with an airfoil that looks like that. It's smooth here for your, you know, your seat material is going to go around there. And the reason I do airfoils is for stiffness. I do fiber rush seats, and I don't know how many wraps ends up being on here, but it's many. And every one of them is pulled very tight. And if you just have a round rung there, by the time you get to the middle, that thing has bent. And so this is for stiffness under your seat. Anyways, I think that's probably going to make a good video and show you the next step. I know that I'm moving really slow on this project, and hopefully the pace will pick up a little bit now. And we got a rainy day today, but it was warm, beautiful day yesterday. And thank you for watching. I am thankful for what I have here. And I hope you can be thankful for what you have wherever you're at. So anyways, thanks for watching.